guys, it's me, Do Not Obey, and welcome to another video. We are back in the book, The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Walls. Now, due to copyright, you know that I will be reading some from my notes and some from the book, okay? So, we're in Chapter 12, Giant Humans versus the Custodians in the Known Lands. Now remember, Chpt is still talking from the last chapter. All right. When the custodians returned triumphant from their war, they found their colony totally revolutionized. Now there was a power they did not expect between giant humans and angry humans revealing themselves for the years of slavery. These long years of giant humans developing and basing their technology on weapons of war and defense, added to the fact that much custodial information was plundered and used for this development and scientific knowledge, led to the climax of a race totally forgotten by the custodians. When they returned and analyzed the situation, they knew they could not carry on another war because of the casualties of the last one and all the expense that they had carried out to defeat the enemy. Obviously, they wanted to start an immediate reset, but their pyramids were destroyed, and they had lost a lot of power in the manipulation of the environment. They thought and analyzed several strategies and waited to see how the conflict with the humans would develop, but fearful of the uncertain future. Another war was born in the known lands. This time, humanity would fight together with the giants against the former colonizers. The fierce battle fought cannot be described because it was really something that generated even fear in many of the other circles. Every day that the sun set, piles of bodies from both sides were observed, lying on the lands that were now only battlefields. There were areas covered by a vast of different vegetation that now was nothing more than sand and dead landscapes. Let's get into these notes. All right, so the custodians were weak from their last war, which also put fear into the Anunnaki now. Okay, now the Anunnaki's worried about their own lands. They feared that a humanity uprising would happen definitely for revenge. The opportunity to annihilate the custodians left a great peace for the people in the celestial lands, because honey, they wasn't playing. No, they weren't playing, okay? Everything was looking like a total victory, but somewhere in the middle it is said that victory was never achieved. Now the custodians had to go back and make a new pact, honey, agreement with the Anunnaki. The custodians end up trading gold and other things that they do not know about, could be like technology, they said, for another deal. The custodians had to leave where they were at, the lands that they had conquered now, to unify. So guess who they left in charge? This is where we get into the Greys of Zeta Reculi and Orion. Those are the beings and entities they left in control. Now the Greys did not agree with the old treaty nor the manipulation, but they also were unconcerned, thinking that the human being would never rebel or grow in that way, like, you know, take control. I guess they seen us as dumb. I don't know. 3, nor did they imagine, now this is the Greys and the Orion people, that a union with a race of forgotten giants would ever come together. They also feared losing their lands at the end of the war to the large humans and the large army that was growing. So there was another war brewing. So when the custodians left to go meet the Anunnaki now, the Greys are in charge. And they're thinking, well, it ain't going to happen over here. These humans are dumb. They're controlled. They're not woke, spiritual woke. They're, you know, they're in our matrix, right? So this is the war. The place exactly where the war happened was in the center of those lands, the lands that we're talking about, where the Greys was protected. Both sides used their weapons of technology. Now, the giant humans, or they call them the Great Tataria, of free energy. Now, these were giants who possessed free energy. They also had their own ships. The war ended up taking place on land, water, and mother effing air. Now, you're talking about some damn Star Wars, Wild Wild West. Okay, baby. Now, who lost? The giants. But they did lose due to the power from the merge of the custodians and the Anunnaki, because of course they ended up coming back. So how the Anunnaki and the custodians end up winning is because they were controlling the environment. They had manipulated the environment, the lands, the air, everything around them. The ships that the giants were using and other troops were getting defeated due to the environment, due to the technology and the wear and tear on the ships. Also, when we say the environment and the manipulation, that means that there was floods, earthquakes, you know, heat waves, snow. I mean, just massive, just Mother Nature off her rocker, right? Because they manipulated it. So Chpt states now, as it is said before, this would mark an before and after in all surrounding worlds. I knew if they lost the war, they were to somehow condemn future generations for several centuries. We're here today. Now let's get back into the book. The giants had to escape from the land since defeat was inevitable and their death was certain. The custodians would never forget the giants for having taken up arms and delivered forbidden knowledge to humans, managing to escape where they had entered through the north and south passages. Some humans followed them and also achieved this longed for escape from the custodial's yoke. I want to go. The ancient souls of Asgard, Lemuria, and Atlantis that inhabited human bodies started from scratch in the lands outside the first dome, known as the ancestral lands. That makes sense now. And although hurt by a hard defeat, they had hoped to grow, gain, and return with new, they ain't giving up, now with 2 different missions to liberate the human being and to finish with the custodians. Human beings begin in these new lands to connect with the source and understand their true past and the importance. Butler interrupted, saying that he had already talked to one of the leaders there, and they did not agree to help us, not because they didn't want to, because they feared that their entire race might actually disappear, as almost last time. I told Butler of my concern for the ancestrals and also for the lands we had left behind. He commented that he doubted they wanted to end up with humanity inside the walls, since all of the resets to date, this seemed to be one that had worked best for them. Besides, the Greys were also under their control and in turn helped to control the human in many other ways. Now listen to this. Since there was high mind control, basic or fundamental, issues were not dealt with, or if they were easily found and reported with some mental problem, immediately sending the culprit to a psychiatric facility where they were easily and successfully controlled by other human members. Imagine if you went back there, William, and wanted to tell everything you experienced here or the information you gathered. If you had time to tell the others, they would not believe you. You would quickly they would not believe you and would quickly send you to a confinement or possibly death itself. Baby. All this that I had heard gave me many answers that I never imagined I would ever hear, but it also generated many other questions. There was so much to process, and everything was running very fast. It was frantic. According to Butler, we should leave the islands as soon as possible. He did not even know his plan as usual. He kept the strategy until the end. We gathered the whole team to leave. We were going to leave the lands of Chpt, and also leave behind that brilliant being who had given me the most important part of this puzzle that seemed indecipherable, a master key that opened so many worlds and possibilities. The lost history of the human being was in my hands. The boys began to ask me about the talk, and also began to look through the book I was carrying with me. Butler also helped me to answer the thousands of questions that arose, including mine. Between all of us, we tried to make this as logical as possible for our confused minds. While the sun went away and a strange night fell on us, one of the strangest in those islands, the sky was tinged with the purest red and generated a fire-like glow. Butler commented that this fire is visible if you sail near the Antarctic ring. It looks like a giant bonfire in the distance. It was something we had even perceived before leaving the known lands. In book, real quick, that makes me think. I'm just saying with the flat earth theory and how it is proven that the entity, like I said, moon and the sun, the heat source, is up under the firmament. And they say there's always second suns and an inner sun because, you can go to the center of the earth in a sense, or down toward the other section. And then they made a sun overseas not too long ago. So I don't know, like, if this is a man-made sun, or is it the same sun that we see because it's all flat and we're still outside the ice wall? I don't know. But I hope you guys did enjoy chapter 12. Of course, chapter 13 will be up next. And like I always say, do not obey. Stay woke. Peace.